I'm going to expose 17 music secrets that show exactly how video game music works. These are real frameworks that have helped my gamer clients create professional quality music and release it onto Spotify, YouTube Music, and Apple Music. We're going to be looking at Ganondorf's theme from Zelda Ocarina of Time. We're actually going to listen to it one time. I'm going to break it down, and then with your improved understanding of everything that's going on at the motif level, we'll listen through it one last time to summarize and bring all your understanding back together. I think what's interesting to start off with is to take a basic look at the overall structure of the ideas and then how those ideas are sequenced into patterns. So we have idea 1 here, that's M1, motif 1. Because it's the first motif we have in this line, we're going to be calling it motif A. Then we have the same rhythm, again here, the same rhythm as motif 1 we have here, so this is going to be motif 1 prime. Whenever we have this little apostrophe, that means prime, which means it's close but not the same. Then we have motif 1 prime prime, right? So again, it's the same exact rhythm as motif 1, different notes again, and it's also different notes than motif 1 prime. And then here I'm calling this motif 2, also known as motif B in the pattern, right? So we have a difference between the ideas. Here's idea number 1, and idea number 1 gets repeated 3 times. So the pattern is going to be A, B. And the reason it's important to understand the difference between the pattern and the ideas is because sometimes we could have idea 2 show up as the first idea. As example, you can see right here, idea 2 actually shows up here as the first idea in the line, which means we're going to be thinking about this actually from a pattern perspective as A. So we have 2 separate systems we're going to think about at the same time, and by using these 2 separate systems, we're going to be able to see fully everything that's going on at the motif level. So the next line we have a repeat. We have A, B. And this is exact repetition. It's literally the same exact thing 2 times in a row. Now we go to this next, what seems like a different section, right? And what's cool about this is the composer takes motif 2. Instead of motif 2 being at the end, motif 2 is now at the beginning. And because motif 2 is at the beginning of the line, every new line starts with A, always. We're never going to start a line with B, so this is A. So the motif pattern here is an A pattern, but it's an AAA pattern using idea number 2. That's important because we need to understand when was the first time we heard this idea. Oh, the first time we heard idea 2 was all the way up here. And now we're seeing it again here, and we heard it again here. And this is how we can start to see how composers will use the same idea, the same motif, and actually bring it to different places. Now, what's interesting about this next line is we could think about this next line in 2 different ways. We can think about it as being an A, B pattern, which works fine. But as you're going to see with some of these lessons, there's multiple ways of slicing the pie when it comes to how we think about motifs. The reason for that is we can look at the relationship of, for example, these 2 chords right here. We have an E flat here that goes down to a D and a B flat that goes down to an A. So this is descending by 1/2 step. And if we look here, we can see a G going to a G flat and a D going to a D flat, which is descending by 1/2 step. So it's actually the same idea, but sped up. And as you know from your level 3 music theory, whenever we take an idea and we make the note values half of the duration, so instead of dotted whole notes here, it's now dotted half notes, that's going to be diminution. So it's taking the same idea, but it's speeding it up so it's twice as fast. That is diminution. So we can think about this as motif 2 like quintuple prime, right? Because here we have motif 2 prime, We have motif 2 double prime, motif 2 triple prime, motif 2 quadruple prime, right? So they're all different notes, but using the same exact rhythm. And now here we can actually think about this as being motif 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sextuple prime, because it's using the same exact ideas, it's just sped up. Or we can think about this as a fundamentally new idea as motif 3. And there's no right or wrong way of slicing this. These are two different ways of thinking about this. So if this is in fact motif 3, or even if it is a reusing of motif 2, either way the pattern is still going to be sAA'B. The question is it really at the idea level? Are we talking about idea 2, and then idea 2 again, but this time using expansion, which is different than augmentation. So augmentation is when you increase all note values proportionally. In this case, we can see that it's actually getting added on another 3 beats. Let's call that expansion, which means it's the same idea, it just takes longer to execute, but we're not sure if it's going to be something that is mathematically augmentation. That's when we multiply across the board. For example, the diminution here is we went from dotted whole to dotted half. That's dividing by 2. Whereas here we can see we have a dotted whole plus a dotted half plus dotted quarter, which equals 7 beats worth of time. And yeah, that's not easy math. So I'm just going to call that expansion, EXP expansion, DIM for diminution. The pattern is sAA'B, sAA'B, sAA'A, sAA'B. Now if we think about the pattern just of ideas, the idea pattern is going to be idea 1, idea 1, idea 1, idea 2. That repeats, idea 1, idea 1, idea 1, idea 2. Idea 2 comes back, idea 2 comes back, idea 2 comes back, idea 2 comes back. If we think about it in terms of diminution, idea 2 comes back, idea 2 comes back, idea 2 comes back again. So really, there's only 2 ideas. And you could think about it as being 3 if you want to think about these dotted half notes as being a separate idea. We're going to see this pattern again and again and again. 2 ideas making an incredible piece of music, and the way that the composer is making these 2 ideas last for an entire theme is by using some type of motivic development, by using expansion, by using diminution, by changing the order of the ideas. Instead of idea 2 being last, idea 2 is now first, and we don't even see idea 1 in the last 8 measures. What we've been talking about is primarily identifying rhythm and then looking at notes, and we haven't really talked about the emotional component of the notes or how the notes are influencing the sound and the overall feeling. And that's because, in my opinion, the highest bang for your buck is to understand rhythmically how to structure things, and then you put in the sequence of notes. You create the notes that you feel is going to create the feeling that you want, and through that you're going to find your own voice as a composer. If I was to point one thing out to you here in terms of the notes, it's that it's fourths everywhere. Everything is fourths, and it's fourths moving up and down chromatically, like fourths moving down by half steps, fourths moving down by whole steps, and that creates an unsettling feeling. This entire piece of music is just fourths. It's wild. Okay, let's go ahead and listen to this one time now with your deepened understanding. One more note on that. I think what's cool about this is this theme loops. And so by actually cutting out a beat of this last measure here and making it 3 beats instead of 4, it gives the feeling of when it loops an off-kilter, unsettling feeling, which is great for a big baddie boss person. That rhythmically there's an unsettled feeling that you're eating a beat right here. It's gone. And then this would start again, what feels like a beat early each time. All right, I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at Aquatic Ambiance, or Ambience, from Donkey Kong Country. We're going to look at this in 2 different ways. Like we saw in Ganondorf's theme, sometimes there's more than one way of interpreting a motif. And while I don't find it useful to get too much into the weeds on how we're interpreting it. I think it's useful to show you two different ways of looking at things because it's two different ways for you to think about how you're going to be constructing motifs, how you're going to be developing motifs, and ultimately how you're going to think about building and creating your own music. So let's jump in and take a look here. As usual, we're going to listen one time through and then we're going to break it down. Absolutely beautiful. So the first thing to notice is that this entire thing is built off of two ideas. And as you'll see in the next version, maybe it's all one idea, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So here we have idea number one as A, idea number one, idea number one. Then we have idea number two here. So in the first line, we have an A, B, A pattern at the motif level. And I think what's interesting to think about is this motif A is always starting on the weak beat. Like you see, it's always starting on beat 2. That's really interesting. And what's cool as well is to see how when idea 1 comes back and it's idea 1 prime, how different the notes are. So we look at the contour of idea 1, it's like this, whereas the contour of idea 1 prime is like this. Now in the next line, we can see idea 1 remains A, and it's actually almost a copy, except we have here A. We have an extra A added in, but still basically it's A, B, A. We just get an extra A. Just really cool. And just thinking about developing an idea, so it's not exact repetition here. And yes, you can also see that the B here, it is idea 2 and it's idea 2 prime. It's a slightly different, you can see this. It's a different contour. It's literally the same exact rhythm, it's just a different contour. And this is why I talk about rhythm so much. If you have a compelling rhythm, you can do almost anything you want to do. With the notes, it's going to sound good. Here's what's cool. In the next line, we have an AA, but the AA is actually made up of idea 2. Idea 2 comes back here as idea 2 prime prime and idea 2 prime prime prime, or triple prime. And so again, what do we see? We see much like we saw with Ganondorf, that we have idea 1, idea 2, idea 1, idea 1. You know, we can talk about how many primes there are. But basically idea 1, idea 2, idea 1, idea 1, idea 2, idea 2. In both cases, we're seeing that idea 2 is used to wrap things up at the end. It's used, in this case, idea 2 happens here. In the case of Ganondorf, idea 2 happened at the end and then was used to wrap things up at the end. Both of these very different structures, different number of measures, totally different. But thinking about, we got two great game pieces of music, both with two ideas, first idea, second idea, both of them end with the second idea and feature the first idea up front. Something to think about. That's a pattern. Now, if we look at the rhythms, I think what's really cool is just how the A rhythm stays exactly the same every single time we see it. There's some variation here, right? So it gets cut off a beat early to make space for another instance of A. But it's just da da da. That's it. Such a simple rhythmic idea. Your rhythmic ideas, your motifs do not need to be complicated. They don't need to be this large, sprawling thing. It can be a simple idea. Simple is effective. And then I think what's interesting too is if we look just at the rhythmic level, starting on beat 2 here, again, not starting on beat 1, finally we get a sound on beat 1 here, which actually creates this feeling of boom, us hitting home here in the third measure. This is a home, a house. So in the same way in 4/4, we have strongest, weak, strong, weakest. When we look at the metric hierarchy, we also have like a hypermeter, which is like large meter hierarchy, where we have strongest, weak, strong, weakest, and we can see that the composer is actually hitting on beat 1 in the strong measure. interesting, again here. And then leaving things open-ended here. There's no hits on one. And that's part of what gives this the floaty feeling. There's no hits on one except for right here and right here. So even here, it's tied over. And then what I think is interesting is if we look at the overall contour of the melody, do do do, you do 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 do. Do do do, you do 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 do. You no 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 no, you no 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 no. Overall, everything is going down. The overall contour. The first line starts on D, ends on E flat. The second line starts on D, ends on E flat. Here starts on A, ends on F. Overall, everything is slanting downward. And then thinking about the B as creating contrast from the A's, the B goes up. And then, yeah, sure, it comes down. But if we just think about the actual melodic contour of the B and the range of the B, look, the B is going up to an F5 here. It's going up to a C6 here. It's going up very high compared to most of the A. We get one A here that goes high, that creates contrast, sure. But thinking about creating contrast at the melodic level like that. So let's take a listen now with your improved and enhanced understanding. You could literally just take idea A, copy and paste a different idea A, take a different idea B, and copy this exact structure without copying the melody. That's the whole point of what we're doing here, is we're getting into the structure, the framework of how these melodies are constructed. I want to show you an alternate interpretation of this. My alternate interpretation of this is it's all one idea. And I'll tell you why. On beat 2, you can see we have this figure. So it's 8, 16, 16 tied to something. So here on beat 2 of the next measure, what do we have? 8, 16, 16 tied to something. We have 8, 16, 16 tied to something. Then what do we have? 8, 16, 16 tied to something. 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 8, 16, 16 tied to something, 8, 16, 16 tied to something. While we could break this down in terms of thinking about idea A, idea A, idea A, idea B, 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 we could also think about it as, no, really, what David did is he took one idea, he took one rhythmic figure, he took just this idea, and then he went, put two of them together, a little bit of an elaboration here, a little bit of an anticipation with ideas here, again, a little bit of elaboration here, changing the melody contour, but keeping the same rhythm. Again, same rhythm here. A little bit of an elaboration and a little bit of an extension here. One idea, one rhythmic figure to create an entire piece of music. Now, with that in the back of your head, let's listen to it one time and just watch the rhythmic patterns as they go by. Like, dude, one rhythmic figure, an entire piece of music. So we can look at it either way. We can think of it as A's and B's, or we can think of it as all one idea that's been developed. Really beautiful stuff. All right, I'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at the motifs from Skyarrow Bridge from Pokémon Black and White. Let's take a listen, break it down, and then listen with some enhanced understanding. Here we go. So if we think about this as being one idea, what's characterizing our idea? So we have a longer attack, that's the quarter note, and then we have 8/16, 8th, and then some other stuff. So again, here we can see quarter note, 8/16, 8th, tied, right? We have something here, 8/16, 8th, tied. Yeah, some extra stuff here. And then this looks to be like an idea 2. Now that said, we can think about idea 2 really as being kind of like idea 1 in the sense that we have this longer thing, some shorter things. You know, we think about long, short, short, long, basically. We have long, short, short, long. Here's idea 2. So idea 2, we could see that as rhythm alteration of our first idea because we still have long, short, short, long. It's just a different long, short, short, long. So even to call it a B, we might not even call it a B. That could still be an A. So again, here we have long, short, short, long with an extra long here. That's cool. Basically, everything after long, short, short, long, we're looking at that as different types of elaboration. Long, short, short, long. Here's the long broken down, rhythm alteration, but then we have the short, short, long, same pattern. Again, long, short, short, long. Then what do we have? The long broken down into 2, short, short, long, 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 short, short, long. And then here we even have a short, short, long here. And then we have long, short, short, and then short, long. Short, short, long at the rhythm level is a motif, and we can spot that all over the place here. So we could actually look at this entire piece as I have it currently written out as being pretty much all one idea, one idea, one idea, one idea. And then sure, why not? Let's call these separate ideas. But the point I'm trying to make here for you is you can start off by saying, I'm going to make a piece based around short, short, long. Or maybe you have an idea, and your idea is this first motif. You say, okay, what's going on here? We have long, short, short, long. All right, let's take this idea of short, short, long, and let's build on top of it. And then just create, create, create. So now I'm going to jump in here and do a little bit more of an in-depth analysis of the actual motifs, looking at the elaboration, simplification, etc. Now, I'm calling this simplification. We could also call it simplification, and it's also truncation, as in we're making it shorter. So make it simpler. Why is it simpler? So it's simpler because here, after the tie, we had 2 notes, whereas here, after the tie, we have 1 note. So that's simplification. And then it's truncation because the next 2 notes are cut off here. And then we have an anticipation where we have these 2/16 notes instead of the quarter note. And then we still have the short, short, long figure here to here. And then there's a little bit more that happens here. So I'm calling this elaboration. Like there's more being said on it. And what I'm really trying to emphasize here for you, it's like you can literally copy and paste ideas and just change a couple things about them. Start it a beat early, start it a beat later. Instead of having it be 3/8 notes, have it be dotted 8th to 16th to 8th to 8th. And then here, yeah, we can call this idea 2. Now what's cool about this is it is using the exact same rhythm, different notes. This starts the same exact way. Quarter, quarter, 16, 16, 8, 8, 16, 16, tied, tied. If we want to draw even more connections, you can see this exact rhythm right here, right? With another note here. We could call it simplification, you know, compared to this, sure. Because instead of having a whole bunch of 8th notes, we just brought it down to be quarter note, quarter. So that's simplification. And here we have a dotted quarter versus just a quarter here with an 8th rest. So if we put a dot here, which we might have been able to, these would be the exact same rhythm with different contours. This is why I tell you, it's like you get a compelling rhythm and you make something that sounds good rhythmically, literally picking where the notes go, very easy way to make a melody. And make a compelling melody at that too. We're thinking about this as being anticipation. So instead of the quarter note, it's going to be 2/16 notes. We're anticipating by half a beat here. And then we still have the same rhythmic figure here, still to the tie. 8th note, sure, kind of like over here, kind of like over here. This exact copy paste, this measure to this measure. It's the exact same rhythm, the exact same rhythm, different notes. Now here we have same rhythm, same notes. And I mean, if that's not starting to blow your mind about just how much repetition there is so much repetition. And the repetition we can see is at the rhythmic level. And if you understand the repetition at the rhythmic level, you just have fun with the notes. Next idea. So instead of a quarter note, it's 2/8. Same rhythmic figure with a tie, same rhythmic figure with a tie, same rhythmic figure with a tie. A little bit more complex and fun here, a little rest. We got 2/8 notes, but it's still basically the same idea. And then here we have, instead of a quarter note, right? We had quarter note here, quarter note here. Here, it's made a little bit more complex. We have 8th, 16th, 16th. That's then tied to the figure that we've had this entire piece of music, the 16, 8, 16, that's then tied. And yeah, we have got some fun stuff going on here. But the point is, it all starts off with the same idea. Now we're taking the start of this rhythm right here, so this development of the motif, where we have 8, 16, 16 tied over. We're going to do that same exact rhythm here. So this rhythm here shows up exactly the same here, up to right here, and then this is the same as this over here, and then a different ending. So we could think about this as being like variation, idea, variation. Variation, idea, variation. Again, variation, idea, variation. Again, variation, idea, variation. One idea. And the second line is just about the same. Yeah, there's some slight variations here, like there's, 2 notes here instead of there being a rest. Yep, this variation here is different than this variation here. Everything else is exactly the same. This is carbon copy. Carbon copy up to here, variation's different. And then here we have, finally, a different idea. Truly, right here we can call this a different idea. Like really, really, really different idea. And I'm saying that, but we can also look at the fact that this measure starts right here. This measure starts with the same figure. 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 The 8, 16, 16. So it's like, how much variation is there really? How much of a different idea is this really? So we can see there's like a couple of motifs, a couple of figures that get reused over and over and over and over again. When you're creating melodies, you don't have to keep on coming up with something new, something new, something new, something new. It's take the one idea and twist it, stretch it, push it, pull it, create variations to the left, variations to the right, build it, drag it, develop it, create variations of it. Talking about rhythm too, we can see that it comes to rest here rhythmically and comes to rest here rhythmically. However, melodically, it's not coming to rest. We're in the key of B flat major and we're landing on scale degree 2. Scale degree 2 is one of those adventure tones. And scale degree 2 is also going to be the 5 of chord 5. It's the 5th. C is going to be the 5th of F. So we can see really right here, this is implying that we're in the dominant area. Whereas here, every single time, it's using chord tones from the 1. So B flat, we have D to F. B flat, we have F, B flat, D. We have C to B flat, F, B flat, B. So it's like, basically, also, we have like tonic area, dominant area, and then all the rest of this, if we're just thinking about tonic and dominant areas for how the melody is constructed, it's like just tonic area. So basically, it's like we have half cadences implied here and here, half cadences. So if we think about our pause points here and here and here and here, in all 4 pause points, some type of 1 is being implied. Whether it's a authentic cadence or there is no cadence getting into it, doesn't matter. It's like it's hitting the 1. So there you go, a little bit of insight there into the rhythm, taking one idea, stretching it out, and then also thinking about how cadences are implied, how the dominant area is implied, and then how basically the tonic area is implied for the entire last 8 measures. With that understanding that we just did there, I want you to listen to it one more time now, thinking about where does the melody feel like it sits? Where does it feel like the melody pushes forward? Because dominant area, where those half cadences are implied, the melody should feel like it's still pushing us forward. It's not done. It's not done. Hitting the 1. Hitting the 1. Hitting the 1. Cool. I'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be breaking down the melody from Neuvema Town from Pokémon Black and White. So let's jump in and take a listen to it, break it down, and then listen to it again. let's look at the pattern of the motifs, look at the pattern of the ideas, and then break things down a little bit more. All right, so we have A, B, A in our first line. And I think what's cool is just noticing all this blank space right here. Don't be afraid of space. And don't think that just because we see A, B, A, B a lot of times in terms of motifs that you need to have that fourth motif in there. You don't. You can just leave space. Next up, in the next line, we have basically A, what I'm calling A truncated, to B, back to A. We have idea 2, if we divide it into 2 halves, we divide actually the measure right down the middle. We have this figure to this figure. What do we see right here? We can see the second half right here, and we see the first half right here with some ornamentation. Ornamentation basically means fast, fancy things. And that be doogie doo da, we're going to call that ornamentation, right? So instead of a 8th note, it's like 16th note triplets right here. So we basically have idea 2, the first half of idea 2, the second half of idea 2, and then we have idea 1 stuck in the middle of it. How wild is that? And then idea 2, we could think of it as extended, that it comes back to the 1. We're in the key of D major. That right there is just so cool. So again, what do we see? 2 ideas. That's it. It's not complicated. 2 ideas. 2 ideas. And these 2 ideas, this is the first time we've seen this, and that's why I want to bring this example to you, is we see the first half of idea 2, second half of idea 2, and then idea 1 sandwiched in the middle. Pretty cool. So here's idea 1. Idea 1, at a very fundamental level, is just going to be long, short, short. No, no, no. There we see there's a rhythmic variation that it starts off with that, but I think every other time we see it after that, it's just 2 8th notes. But basically, this is the motif, right? And I'm saying the motif is this 2 times, and I'll show you in the next one. We can think about each one of these instances being the motif, because this is a recognizable musical idea, right? That's a recognizable musical idea. Do, 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 that's a recognizable musical idea, just at the rhythmic level. Okay, and then idea 2, I'm saying ba 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 ba. That's a musical idea. So if we to map the ideas out, we have idea 1, idea 2, idea 1. Idea 2, the first half of idea 2, idea 1, the second half of idea 2. So basically, it's going 1 2 1 2 1 2. It just does it a little bit fancy. Instead of it being a pure 1 2 1 2 1 2, it goes 1 2 1 2, again, a little bit of 2, 1, and then the last half of 2. So cool. And this is the genius where we can see these simple patterns really start coming to life. It's like taking ideas like this. Who's going to think of splitting up an idea in half, put the first half in front of idea 1, the second half on the other side of idea 1? So cool. I'm going to highlight idea 2 in blue wherever it appears. Here's idea 2. Here's idea 2. It's the same exact rhythm. Here's the first half of idea 2 with some ornamentation. It's effectively truncated. And then here's the last half of idea 2. And right here, you can see, I'll highlight idea 1 in red. Here's idea 1. Idea 1. So cool. All right, so let's think about what's going on with the rhythm in terms of keeping this thing moving. So this feels like it moves us. It moves us. We're hitting strong beat, strongest beat. And then it's just these quarter dotted here really gives it a feeling of coming to rest. Because this right here, this is all syncopation. Syncopation. This, syncopation. And then non-syncopation. So you can think about it, yeah, there's a mix of hitting on the strong beats, but there's strong syncopation, strong syncopation, strong syncopation, and then just hitting these 2 quarter notes, even though they're not on the strongest beats, it's on strong and weakest. Just by hitting those 2 quarter notes, it creates a feeling of coming back home. Same idea here. It's like no syncopation. It just hits on the strongest beat. Again, syncopation, non-syncopated, do, syncopation, do, land on it, do, land on it, do. Again, same idea, 2 quarter notes, dotted, do. Rhythmically, that's what's working here in terms of pushing and pulling. Now, if we think about the notes, we're starting on scale degree 5, making our way down to 1. Starting on scale degree 5, making our way down to 1. Scale degree 6, making our way down to 1, but this time 1 actually sounds like the 3rd of the minor 6 chord. And this 6 right here sounds like the 3rd of the 4 chord, just like subdominant here. No. Now this G There's two ways we can think about this G, but any way we slice it, this is going to sound like the subdominant area. This G is either the third of E minor, the 2, or this G is the root of the 4. Either way, the 2 or the 4 work for the subdominant area. Do, 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 do. Right here, this 7, I even wrote authentic cadence. This is such like an obvious cadence point at this pause point right here. It's so obviously a cadence because it's going scale degree 7 to scale degree 1. Ending on scale degree 1 is like you can't get more like cadency area than that. This pause point right here, this feels like we're coming back to 1. Tonic area. Again, coming back to 1. It's like tonic area. Then it's like subdominant area. Do, tonic area, do, 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 do. 6 still is tonic area. Why is 6 tonic area? Well, if you think about it, we have D, F sharp, and A are going to be our notes for the D major chord, F sharp, and then we have B, D, and F sharp are going to be the notes for the 6, and so we got 2 out of 3, and in fact, if we add the A, it just makes it a B minor 7. So that's why 6 functions as the tonic area. Do, 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 subdominant to like 2. Do, 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 to 5. It gives us a subdominant dominant cadence to 1. All right, now with that more in-depth understanding, let's take a listen. All right, so you've gained insight into some motif structures from different video game compositions. Some of the big takeaways. Oftentimes, there's only 2 ideas. Sometimes, there's only 1 idea. Rarely, we saw 3 different ideas. The 1 and 2 ideas are developed using motivic development. Check out level 3 music theory if you haven't yet. So what's your next step with this understanding? Well, what I would invite you to do is to create at the very least 10, and even better, winners will create 30, yes, 30, 8 to 16 measure sketches that use motif ideas using either 1 or 2 motifs. All right, so go ahead, create some music, and then I will see you in the next lesson where we're going to talk a little bit about melody subphrases. I'll see you there. If you're finding this video helpful, I have tons of courses like this in my community for gamers who want to create their own music. If you want our help to create music, to build a professional portfolio on Spotify, YouTube Music, and Apple Music, or you want help composing your first original soundtrack, or you just want to make music for fun, click the link in the video description and apply for our Gamer Music Creator Guild now. There are tons of compositions and songs we've already helped gamers just like you create and release professionally. No previous musical experience is required. You can be a total beginner and you do not need to buy any extra gear. We give you everything you need from day 1 if you are accepted into our program. Click the link in the video description and apply for the Gamer Music Creator Guild now. What I'm going to share with you in these next few lessons are melody frameworks using subphrases specifically. We're actually not even going to look at phrases because when we understand what's going on at the subphrase level, that can actually crack open the understanding of what's going on with music. Now, some of this is going to pull from classical music theory. However, we're not going to think about it in terms of classical music theory. Why is that? Because if we think about it in classical music theory terms, it's going to box us into very particular and specific ways of using these frameworks that's going to preclude us from opening up our compositions into the modern world of what we can hear in video game music that obviously has been around for a while. It hasn't been around since like the 17th, 18th, 19th century, and that's when a lot of these classical music frameworks were used. Now, you can go on YouTube and find tons of videos talking about specific classical frameworks for melodies. And again, they're useful. And again, I am going to teach them to you, but I'm not going to frame them to you in classical music terms. I'll show you how to do it in the classical way, but if I give you the same exact things that you can find on YouTube, you're going to get stuck in the same patterns everyone else was doing, specific was doing 30 or 40 years ago when it comes to creating video games, and not what they're doing now, which is being flexible, using the patterns, but also inventing and creating new ones, which I'm also going to show you how to do in this series. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to jump in, and I've got some great examples notated down for you. We're going to listen through it. I'm going to break it down. We'll listen through again with enhanced understanding, and then you're going to create some incredible music. Ready? Let's jump in, and I will see you in the first lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at the subphrases from Donkey Kong Country bonus theme and Ganon's theme from Zelda Ocarina of Time. Let's jump in and understand the framework we're going to be looking at today, which is the sAA'BC framework. Let's listen and let's learn. Here we go. So we can see very clearly that there is an A idea, da 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 da. Rhythmically, that idea it repeats, da 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 da. And then we have this da 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 da. And then a third idea, da 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 da. Now we're not going to look at the motifs. We're just going to look at the subphrase level of what's going on here. Now these two A's, if we're thinking in terms of classical music, this is going to be called the presentation. Why? Because it's taking an idea once and it's saying, all right, you heard the idea once, here's the idea again. So it's showing the idea 2 times. Then the B, we could call this the continuation. And then finally over here, we'd call this the cadence. Now in classical music, this is called a sentence form. Sentence, like when you speak a sentence, the same thing. But I actually feel like the sentence form is more like being sentenced to 30 years of hard labor. Sentence behind bars. And I would invite you to associate anytime when someone wants to talk to you about the sentence form, think about as it's putting you in bars. So the reason why we don't want to think about this as being a classical music sentence is because to make it a classical music sentence, there must be a cadence here. And there must not be a cadence here, here, or here. So there must only be a cadence at the end pause point and no other cadences anywhere else, which means if you put a cadence somewhere else, all of a sudden, technically we're no longer in a sentence, which is, again, another reason why let's not think about this from a classical perspective. So now you understand this from a classical perspective. Let's think about this from a more modern perspective, shall we? It's an AA'BC framework when it comes to the melody. And what you want to think about doing is have your A. Now this A here rhythmically is the same, but in terms of notes, slightly different. Right? It's different notes. So I'm going to call this subphrase A prime. This is, by the way, very common to see that we have some type of A, and then the A will be somehow changed the second time it comes back around. Change the A. Don't have the same A 2 times in a row. Now the B, this is your opportunity to create some type of contrast with your motifs. We can see here a lot less space, right? A lot less space. And changing up the rhythmic patterns. And then the C, this is your place to either bring things home or set yourself up to launch into the next area. In this case, everything gets brought home, and it gets brought home early. We're in the key of C major. 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. It's like all ones. It's just hammering on the fact that here it's like tonic area. You know, over these D's, could you put like a 5? Yeah, sure you could. But overall, it's just hitting that we're on the tonic area. So think about using this structure when you create motifs. Think about fitting them into an AA'BC framework, but it's not the only framework that we're going to look at. And in fact, we're going to look at one more AA'BC framework here in just a moment. Now, in this case, the AA'BC, each one is 1 measure long. So with that understanding, let's take a listen to this. AA'BC, we have an idea. We present the idea again. Then we have some type of area here that contrasts with the idea. And then we bring ourselves home in some way here. Great. So we just saw an ABAC with 1 measure, A, B, C. Now let's look at 2 measures, A prime, B, and C. Let's check it out. Beautiful. Now this is Neuvema Town from Pokemon Black and White. And as we can see, it's following this classic sentence form. However, it's breaking the rules because right here we have a cadence bringing us to 1. So again, this is why we don't think of things in terms of sentence form. We think of it in terms of AABC at the subphrase level. So we can see we have a statement. And then we have, it starts exactly the same way. If we think about this, we could call it truncated. Think about it simplified and truncated. Point is, we have an exact copy of A from here to here, from here to here. Exact copy. The ending's a little bit different. Then we have this contrasting B section. Now this B section is contrasting not just because we're using idea number 2, it's also contrasting because we're going up. Instead of starting on the 5th, we're starting on the 6th, and instead of going down, it goes up, then comes down. So we have this B, this contrasting, we have this increase in melodic rhythm here. Again, this is creating contrast in the B area, and then the C does indeed lead us to a cadence area. So this is another example of an AA'BC that follows something approximating the sentence form, but again, we're not going to think of it in terms of a sentence, we're going to think of it as an AA'BC. Now let's look at Ganondorf's theme from Ocarina of Time. Let's listen to it one time. What do we have here? We have an A, then we have B, and then we have C. So instead of things taking 1 measure at a time to complete, now they're taking 4 measures at a time to complete. And this is an important understanding when we're talking about subphrases. I actually labeled these as phrases because they're taking so long to complete, but we can really think about them as subphrases too. It doesn't really matter. Phrase, subphrase, don't worry about it. You can have an AAB framework take place over 1 measure each. It can take place over 2 measures each. It can take place over 4 measures each. It can take place over 8 measures each. This again is creating that sentence form, but we're not going to think about it as being a sentence. Why? Because we don't have cadences in certain places. However, if we look at the melody, we can see we have a statement. Then we have A, and this is exact repetition. There's no variation. Exact repetition. We have A again. So A. It's not A prime. It's literally A again. Then we have B. Some type of contrast is happening in the B. Yep, it's a contrasting idea. It's actually taking, if you recall from our motif lessons, it's taking idea 2 and using idea 2. And then we have this C area here. C, it doesn't create a cadence, but it does create a build-up to a type of ending here. And this note being held out longer here, this extension, fundamentally, of idea 2, does create a feeling of some type of resolution. I won't call it resolution, but it's some type of resolution where we feel like we've arrived at the end. It creates a feeling where it's like, okay, we can go back to the beginning. We get that we're going back to the beginning. And also this da do dee do do, the increase in harmonic rhythm. The increase in harmonic rhythm here creates contrast to all other parts. It also gives us this feeling that creates even more contrast when we go to long. So we can see C is actually creating, in my opinion, even more contrast by first cutting the harmonic rhythm in half, going to dotted half notes, and then almost doubling the harmonic rhythm by going to 2 dotted quarter notes. So contrast, 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 AABC. This is the AABC framework. Before you go to the next lesson, write 10, count them, 10. Winners, write 30. Minimum is write 10. If you're going, hey, are you saying if I don't do 10, I'm not a winner? I didn't say that. You might have said that. Winners do 30. And it doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need to spend more than 10 minutes per sketch that you do. Just create some sketches that are in the AABC framework. And do both AABC and also do prime BC, right? So you have some type of variation here. Create 10 to 30 of these Share them with me for review. A, A, B, C. Huge. This is not a long lesson. It doesn't need to be a long lesson. It's potent. It's powerful. Use it. Now, how long should they be? Well, you can do one measure, one measure, one measure, one measure. You can do two measures, two measures, two measures, two measures. You can do 4, 4, 4, 4, and you can do 8, 8, 8, 8. That'll keep things symmetrical. Do symmetrical for now, and if you get inspiration and you find your way to an idea where you're like, actually, I want it to be 4, 5, 3, 4, or whatever, go do that too. Follow your inspiration, follow your ear. Start off by working symmetrically, or keep all of them as one measure, all of them as 2, all of them as 4, or all of them as 8. Great. Go ahead, crank those out. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the ABAC subphrase framework. Now, when this is done classically, following certain rules, this is called period form. We're not going to worry about that. We're just going to call it ABAC with subphrases. Why? Because we don't have to be tied in to thinking about how long the period or the time of our sentence to classical music jail is going to be. We don't want to do that. So let's take a listen to this, and then let's break it down. This is going to be Accumula Town from Pokemon Black and White. Beautiful. Now, if we think about this from a subphrase perspective, what do we have? All right, we got subphrase A, a subphrase B, then we have subphrase A again, which is literally exact repetition. It's not A prime, it's literally subphrase A, then to subphrase C. Then we have a new phrase, so we're going to start again with a new A. This is going to be different content though. We got subphrase A, then we got subphrase B, and then we got subphrase A prime, slightly different, and then we've got subphrase C. So what I want to point out to you here is in both cases we have an ABAC framework. In the second half of this piece of music, we have an ABA prime C. Now, when we have an ABAC, we're actually going to think about this in terms of antecedent and consequent. You might remember these terms from Music Theory 3. Antecedent basically means a question. A consequent basically means an answer. And when we look at an ABAC framework with subphrases, we're going to think about the AB as being the question, and then the AC as being the answer. And we can see that both of these are broken into this question-answer framework. We have ABAC, and then we have another question, which is a different A and a different B, and then we have A prime C, which is the second answer. Now, in classical terms, this is going to be called a parallel period, whereas this is going to be called a similar period. But again, you don't need to think about these terms because these terms are loaded with all kinds of rules about where cadences need to happen, what kind of cadences need to happen. We need to move from lighter cadences to stronger cadences. If we're thinking about this in terms of classical music, at the end of the AB, we'd want some type of a half cadence. We'd want a leading tone in perfect authentic cadence. We'd want an imperfect authentic cadence. We'd want a deceptive cadence, maybe even a plagal cadence. That's bringing us into modern already, talking about the plagal cadence. We want some cadence that's not a perfect authentic cadence. And then for the answer, in general, we'd want it to end with some type of stronger cadence. That might be a leading tone in perfect authentic cadence, might be an imperfect authentic cadence, might be a perfect authentic cadence. In the case where you have two periods directly after each other, or two ABAC frameworks directly after each other, sometimes the C will end with a weaker cadence, and the second C will end with a stronger cadence, which basically creates the question and answer at the highest level. Now, we could also set this up that the first ABAC, this acts as a meta question, and then the second ABAC acts as a meta, very high level answer. Now, we can see that's not quite the case here with this piece of music that we're looking at, but this is an option of a way of thinking about it. It's like we have this mini question, mini answer inside both of these, mini question, mini answer inside both of these, and then at the very highest level, this entire section is a question, this entire section is an answer. And this is where it's useful to use the classical thinking, I believe. Think about it using the question and answer framework of antecedent and consequent and zooming out and thinking about question and answers. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can also have an answer. We could also have question, and both of these end with some type of half cadence. These both end unfinished or maybe a deceptive cadence. These both end some way that's not totally satisfying as an answer that would then lead us to a whole nother section where we do something totally different. What you're going to do now is create between 10 and winners do 30. Just letting you know. Winners do 30. If you want to do 30, you don't have to do 30, but winners do 30. Dan, it's not fair. You keep on saying winners do 30. I know. It's called setting expectations. Yeah, or not. I don't want to stress you out, but hey, you do more, you're going to get better a lot faster. Just leave that up to you. Dan, it feels like you're manipulating me. Am I? Influence, I prefer. Influence is when you get someone to change their behavior for their own good because you have their best interest at heart. So I'd like to think I'm influencing you, not manipulating. Manipulating is when you have your own interest at heart and you want to get someone to do something for you, right? I'm influencing you. I'm not manipulating you. And I'm influencing you to be the best version of yourself and the best composer and music creator you can be. Okay, so create 10 to 30 ABAC frameworks. Now, when we think about creating these ABAC frameworks, the A can either be A or it can be A prime. Each can be one measure. Each can be two measures. That's what we see here. Each is two measures. Each can be four measures. Each can be 8 measures. Within this, you can think about these first two as being the question. These second two as being the answer. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, to be clear, you don't have to do the question and answer. You can literally just have AB content, AC content, and you not have the question answer. It can be answer. We can also have question. And then we have A, or it could be A prime. Either one. All right, here we go. So you either have question, answer, question, answer. You have ABAC or AB, A prime C. It's either all 1 measures, all 2 measures, all 4 measures, or all 8 measures. Go ahead and crank out some melodies using this way of thinking about it and use the motif lessons you learned before. Don't just throw that out the window. Think about, how am I going to use my motifs to create these structures? And when we think about it that way, we're saying, okay, inside of the A, what am I doing? Am I doing an A, B inside of the A? Am I doing an A, B inside of the A? Am I doing my motifs, right? A, B, A, C inside of the motif? How am I going to structure my motifs inside of each subphrase? So think about that and go ahead and crank out a whole bunch of these. Share them with me for review in the community. I will look over them, make sure we get your feedback for any of them. But go ahead and crank out a whole bunch of these. It's going to take your music and your melody writing to the next level. Go ahead and do that, and then I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to look at Aquatic Ambience from Donkey Kong Country in terms of the framework of the subphrases, because it creates a very interesting framework of A, B. 3 letters, not 4. Let's jump in and check it out. So what's immediately fascinating about this in terms of thinking about the subphrases is we have A here that's 4 measures long. Then we have the next A that's again 4 measures long. And then it goes to subphrase B, which is also 4 measures long. So this is asymmetrical, which means it's not symmetrical. It's just a one-word way of saying not symmetrical. You say it's asymmetrical. In the sense that we have double the measures of A. So we've got 8 measures of A. We've only got 4 measures of B. Now what's cool about this is there's a classical form, which is called ternary form, where you have an ABA structure. Now, we actually don't normally see this form in ABA in video game music. Why? Because things loop, right? And I think what's interesting here is that if we look rhythmically at what's going on, up to here, these A's are identical. And in fact, here, the A's are identical as well. And the only variation we can see in the A's happens right here. And that's why we have this as an A prime. So we have an A, and we have an A prime, and then B. And then the B, again, it's using that idea 2 being here, using idea 2 the whole way through here. And so this is a pretty quick lesson. Now that you understand we have an AAB structure, what you're going to go do is you're going to go create some AAB structured melodies. Now, before I send you off with your assignment, something I want to point out too is if you've done level 3 music theory, the AAB structure, it's kind of like a blues. I'll sing a blues bass line as I show you. So A. So we have like the turnaround here. We'd have the 5/4 business here. This is kind of structured like a blues. Anytime you see 12 bars, 12 measures, then you're going to think about, ooh, AAB, it's kind of bluesy. This is structured like a blues. Very cool structure. So go ahead and create 10. Winners create 30. And if you're like, Dan, you're going to look through 30? Yeah, I guess I am. And you're going to be a much better composer, and we're both going to thank each other for it later. So go ahead and create 10. Again, winners create 30. Sketches. Now, what's cool about this, it doesn't have to be 12 measures long. Just like we've seen with the other frameworks, we have an A, B, A prime B to be specific. We could do 1, 1, 1. We could do 2, 2, 2. We can do 4, 4, 4. We could do 8, 8, 8. No right answer. Try all of them. I think what's cool about the 1, 1, 1 is it creates an odd number of measures that you're going to cycle through. The 2, 2, 2 creates 6 measures, which is not common that you find 6 measure groupings. The 4, 4, 4, that creates 12. That's pretty common. And then 24, not unheard of, but also 32 would be a little bit more common than 24. So most common is going to be right here at the 4. But you can experiment with all these. Just create an A prime B form. I think the danger you run with one measure at a time is you end up basically just creating a motif, right? You might have 2 motifs in the measure. Basically, going to be like motif 1, and then motif 2. Basically is what you're going to end up creating. Yeah, so go ahead and crank out some of these, and I will see you in the next lesson after you make a whole bunch of these and share them in the community. I'll see you there. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about the double ABAC. The reason why it's called double is because there's going to be some type of content that's featured up here in the first A that's also going to be featured in the third A. So there's going to be a connection between the ABAC. So we have an ABAC framework up here. Then we've got an ABAC framework down here. And these two A's are always going to be somehow connected. Just so happens, these A's are also all connected together. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this, see if you can spot that connection, and then we'll break this down a little further. So this is Forest Frenzy from Donkey Kong Country. And what we can hear and also see is that the motif here of D, C natural, D, C natural, D, F natural, G, D is the same exact notes we have here. It's just up an octave. It's an octave higher. So we're still going to call it subphrase A. We're just going to call it subphrase A prime. And then we can see here we have D, C, AGA, D, C, AGA. Just the D and the C are brought up an octave, and the AGA stay exactly the same. right? So slight variation. And then again, here's our A. It's up an octave, so the same as our A prime. And then we have C here, where we have quite a few connections from the other C. We have the D, we have the C, we have the C tied to the C, we have the D, we have the F, we have the G. The only difference is this is an C, this is an A, and all of this is up an octave. And the cool thing about this, and this is a very simple example, but you can make this a lot more complex. And how you can make this more complex is it doesn't have to be this like, this is just like a simple pentatonic melody. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying you can take this to a whole nother level of what kind of complexity you're putting in this A. And then you have the B, and then you have this A and then a C. This could also be an A prime. You could change the content, right? Then you could have A. This B does not have to be as closely related to this B as it is. This C does not have to be as closely related to this C as it is. It could be a radically different B and a radically different C, and you just have the connection between the A sections. And again, this is an idea we're borrowing from classical music in terms of the structure, but we're not following the rules and the restrictions of classical music for how to use this. We're saying, okay, Mozart, I see what you did there. You did an ABAC, and then you did another ABAC, and the A's were related. In this case, the B's and the C's are also related, but the B's and the C's do not have to be related. You also don't need a gap in between the ABAC. You can jump straight into the next ABAC. And so what we can think about is we can think about this at the same level of we have an ABAC, then we have an ABAC, or we can have an ABA prime C, and then we can have an ABA prime C, or we could have an ABAC and then an A prime. So there's some slight difference between this second A and this first A, BAC. And then this A relates more to this A than it does to the first A. So there's so many different ways you can structure it once you have two of these ABAC structures stacked together at the same time. And then if we add in the next layer of the equation, it's like, okay, do we have question, question? Do we have answer, answer? Or do we have question, answer? Or do we have answer, question? Right? Because when you're talking about these two large groups together, you could ostensibly have an answer for your AB, have a question for your AC, and then have another question or have another answer, answer, question, and then answer or question, and your next ABAC. In terms of how you're thinking about where the melody's going, whether you're going to put cadences in there, if you are putting cadences, what the chord progression is, all of that good stuff. Cool. So there you go. This is an idea of a double ABAC for you. Go ahead and make 5 of these. Winners make 10 double ABACs following this framework. And again, you could have the first A, you can have each be 2 measures, each be 1 measure, each be 4 measures, does not matter. Go ahead and crank those out, share them with me for review, and then I'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to jump into the A, B, A prime, B prime structure using Skyarrow Bridge from Pokemon Black and White as an example. Let's listen to it. Let's break it down. Here we go. Beautiful. A, B, A, C. Let's map it out. So we've got A for 2 measures here. Then we've got B for 2 measures. And we come back to A. This time it's A prime. Same rhythm, different notes. And then we've got B prime. Same rhythm, different notes. Now we're on to, we see we've got double bar line here. So we're going to start again from A with our subphrases. We have a new section now, so new A. Got A, then we got B, then we've got an A prime, very similar melody, very similar rhythm, and also similar melody, just some slight variations. And then B prime, some variations up to the end where it gets a little bit different. So just a quick lesson to clarify, whenever we have a new section, we're going to start a new subphrase A counting. Just like whenever we have a new line, we start a motif A, we start a new subphrase A whenever we get to a new section. So this right here, this is a new section. And I think what's interesting here is to think about, okay, we have literally boom, 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 almost here to here, the same exact melody in this A to A prime. In terms, we almost have the same exact rhythm. The notes change, but the rhythm is almost identical. And then here, the rhythm is perfectly identical. In the B, the rhythm is exactly the same, only a couple of the notes change. And even there, it's like the variation is here. This is the variation. Everything else is literally exactly the same. Now, if we look at our next one, we've got our A, B, A, B. And again, the A's and B's are so similar. We could make an argument that it's all A's because like we looked at with the motifs, we can kind of point to this all being the same idea. We're going to call it an A, B, A prime, B prime structure. So with an A, B, A prime, B prime structure, and you see this is actually two structures in a row. And this is starting to hint at form, which is where we're going to head next. Spoilers, we're not quite there yet, which is basically you just take frameworks and stack them together, and that's how you're going to create a piece of music. This is the entire piece of music, 16 measures, and it just loops. That's it. So it's like when you think about creating a piece of music for release, it's like usually you're looking at like, okay, let me have like this section and this section and this section. It's like, or you could just compose in 2 sections and just loop them like 2 or 3 times. Just saying, that's an option. All right, so we've gotten A, B, A prime, B prime. Now you can do 1 measure each, you can do 2 measures each, you can do 4 measures each, you can do 8 measures each. And then just the question is, what motifs are you putting inside of all of these? And how are you changing those motifs? How many ideas do you have? Likely just 2 ideas. You can create all of this out of 2 ideas, or even just 1 idea. There you go. So go ahead and make 10 of these. Winners make 30. Share them with me for review in the community. Crank them out. Get some ideas down. AB, AB, and I'll see you in the next lesson. The last commonly used framework in video games that I want to share with you is the sAA'B framework at the subphrase level. Now the sAA'B framework, a lot of times when I've heard it, in fact all the times I can think of, I might have heard it in other places, but all the times I can think of, it's actually used at the end to loop us back around to the A. So an sAA'B framework is a great way of tying something up. If you're not quite sure how to tie something up, throw in an sAA'B framework at the end. That's going to get you your ending to launch you back to the top. Now keep in mind that the piece of music you're about to look at, because there were so many notes, instead of having 4 measures on each line, there's actually 2 measures on each line, just because there's so much going on inside of this piece of music. So it's kind of apples to oranges in terms of how you've been thinking about these structures of 4 measure groups. It's now 2 measure groups, but I think this is still going to work for you. So we're going to listen through this because I want you to hear how the sAA'B structure at the end is going to turn us around. So before we listen to it, I want to highlight the sAA'B structure so you're looking for it and you can hear it. Here's the sAA'B structure. Here it is. Here's the A at the end. A, B. We can see we have that double bar line, which means we have a new section here. All right, let's listen through this one time, and I want you to keep an eye out on that sAA'B, and then we'll break this whole thing down a little bit further. Let's check it out. Right there, the bup. Right. Okay. And you can hear how that turns us back around. That's also the silence helps of the dot, 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 dot. Normally that's played by a drum. This is the Donkey Kong Country bonus theme. And this is the full thing. So we're going to walk and talk through this, and sort of my little bonus at the end is going to be walking you through the sAA'B. What I want to show you is this starts off with 3 sections. We have, at the very top of this, we have an A, B, C framework. Then it goes to a second different A, A, B, C framework. The second sAA'BC framework. New ideas, totally new section, brand new A, brand new B, brand new C. Then to end it is an sAA'B framework. So you can think about this sAA'B framework to tie up any of the other frameworks we learned so far. So if you have like an sAA'BC framework, if you have an sABA'B framework, you have an sABAC, or an sABA'C, or an sAA'BC framework. Stick one of these together, stick two of these together, stick three of them together, and you can get out of them very easily to the next section, or to loop back to the top with an sAA'B. It's a great ending. You don't have to use it all the time, but wow, it sure works super well. So we have the A. Do-ba-do-do-do. A repeats. Do-do-do-do-do. It's literally the same rhythm, just changing the notes. So we call this A prime. Again, this brings us to some type of conclusion here. And then it changed. Do-bo-dum, don't-bo-dum, don't-bo-dum. And then here's A prime. This is a change here. Don't-da-da-bring-da-da-dum. And then here's B. Di-digga-digga-digga, di-digga-digga-digga. And then here's C. Don't-da-bring-da-da. And the C again is bringing us to some type of cadence. It's bringing us back to 1. C brings us back to 1. C brings us back to 1. Then here we have dum 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 ya da 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 da. sAA'B framework to tie things up. So here's your homework. Your homework is to go back and look through between the 30 to 120 sketches you've written so far with these frameworks. Pick 10 of them. Winners pick 30. Pick 10 of them. Again, winners pick 30, and add in an sAA'B framework at the end to turn them back around to loop. And if you want to hear it, add a repeat sign in here at the end. So listen to this one time through with the repeat sign so you can actually hear how that sAA'B creates this space for us to launch back into the A. Beautiful. There you go. I will see you in the next lesson. As you can see, when it comes to composing video game music, thinking about melodies at the subphrase level is a very useful tool and helps us understand how a lot of video game music that is melody driven is created. So go ahead, if you haven't already, create a whole bunch of examples. If you have created your examples and shared them, fantastic. Great job. You've taken a giant step forward in your ability to craft melodies, and very likely we've found a couple of them that are really phenomenal that I'm going to have you work on some more and take to the next level, possibly arranging, bringing into a DAW, etc. All right, fantastic job. Go ahead, mark this lesson complete, and I'll see you over in the next lesson where we're going to zoom out even further. We started in motifs, we zoomed out a little bit to video game subphrase melodies. Now we're going to zoom all the way out and look at the overarching form that we're going to fit our motifs, our subphrases into, so you can create even larger groups and actually think about your entire composition as a finished product from a form and a melody perspective, all the way zoomed out. It's going to be like Google Earth when you zoom all the way out. You're like, oh, I can see the continents. It's like that for music. I'll see you there. In this module, we're going to dive into the form of video game music. We're going to look at melody-driven and then also not quite so melody-driven video game music, because it's not all like Mario and Donkey Kong nowadays. There's many different types of genres, many different types of music. So we're going to go ahead and check out globally different types of form. For some of these, we're going to have some notation examples to look at. For all of these, we're going to have listening examples that I'm going to listen through. I'm going to talk to you about. We're going to mark some stuff up, look at the iPad, look at the overall form and structure. But this allows you to now go in and see music at all three levels. We see it at the motif level, at the phrase level. We look specifically at the subphrases, and now looking at form globally, how everything comes together. All right, let's jump in and I'll see you in the first lesson. In this lesson, we're going to talk about A-B forms, specifically even A-B form. So let's understand what I mean by even A-B form. Now, even A-B form is also called symmetrical. It means it's the same on all sides. I prefer the word even. It's a little shorter and more people understand it. But even, symmetrical, basically synonymous. An A-B form means there's only an A section and a B section, and these A and B section repeat over and over again. A and B is also called binary. Binary is in the language of computers with ones and zeros. It's either a 1 or it's a 0. In the same way, binary form is either an A or a B. I'm just going to call it A-B form. So we can see, for example, here in the Donkey Kong, we have a A section. We got this 2-measure like interlude, and then a B section. This is an A-B, and it's even. Why? Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 in the A, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in the B. We can see that inside of the A section, we have an ABAC form, and inside of the B section, we have an A prime, B prime, A prime, C prime form. Here we have one from Pokemon Black and White. And we're going to see it's going to be an 8-measure A section and an 8-measure B section. Inside of our A section, we have an A, B, A prime, B prime. Inside of our B section, we have an A, B, A prime, B prime. And how do we tell they're different sections anyway? Well, we have radically different material that happens, and it happens in 8-measure groups. In general, sections are going to be 8 measures long. Like as a general rule, that's also, we could think of this as being a phrase, right? So we have the antecedent and then the consequent. We have an AB, AB. All right, and those are 8 measures each. And again, this is even. It's symmetrical. We have 8 and we have 8. It's the same number. All right, let's look at another one from Pokemon Black and White. Here again, we have an 8-measure A section and an 8-measure B section. What's interesting is the A actually has an AB, AC framework inside it, inside of the A, and inside of the B section, there is an A, B, A, C framework. Different ABs, different ACs. And this is even. Why? Because there's 8 and 8. All right, now let's listen to a couple more examples. These are examples you've heard already in the previous lessons. We're going to listen to some other examples. So we're going to jump into a different screen share and listen through some things. In Pallet Town from Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, we can hear that there is an A-B structure, and it's an even A-B structure. We've got an A that's 8 measures and a B that's 8 measures. Let's listen through it and count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Great, that was our A. Now we're going on to new material. We can hear is new motifs, new sounds. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8. That was our B. Now back to A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2. We're in the B now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2. Now we're back to the A. Here's the Pokemon Center from Pokemon Black and White. And we're going to see again, there's going to be an A section, there's going to be a B section, and each one of these is going to be 8 measures long. Let's take a listen. Here we go from the top. I'll color it in as we go. Here's the A. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we go to the B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're back to the A. Now we're going to hear brand new motifs, ideas happening right here, and the B starts now. B. Different melody, different section. And there it is. This next one is called Town from Final Fantasy II. We're going to see again an 8-measure A section and 8-measure B section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3. Measure 4. Measure 5. And that was a little half cadence there. 3, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. B section. Oh, totally different. 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 3, 4, and now we're back to the A. Repeats. Now we're to B. Looks like an A-B subphrase. A, C. Both of these sounded like it had ABAC subphrases. So there you go. That is A-B form, also known as binary. I just like to call it A-B. Showed you a couple examples. We listened to a couple examples. Your homework is to now go identify which pieces you created in our motif and our subphrase modules where you actually were creating a lot of compositions. Go identify which ones fit this A-B structure. Go ahead, find them, check them out, and give yourself a pat on the back because you created an A-B composition and you didn't even know it. I will see you in the next lesson. We just looked at an A-B form that is even. There was the same number of measures in the A section as there was in the B section. Now, what happens if we have a different number of measures in the A section than in the B section? Let's look at what happens when we have 8 measures in the A section and only 4 measures in the B section. This creates something called an uneven A-B form, as opposed to an even one. Now, the fancy name for this is an asymmetrical binary form, but I don't expect you to remember that. Just remember there's an A-B and it's uneven. A-B uneven. Let's listen to an example from Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, Route 1, and a quick note before we listen to this. All of the pieces of music we've listened to so far have been from games that were published before the year 2000. Indeed, many of them before the year 1995. And one of the reasons for that is the very clear-cut A-B form, and in this case, it's a very clear-cut uneven A-B form, are much easier to find in these earlier games where composers were looking directly to classical composers for inspiration for how to structure their music. So we can see the uneven A-B form and the even A-B form are classical forms, but as you saw from the examples we just listened to and looked at in the last lesson, we don't have to use it for classical sounding music. However, this piece of music does sound classical. Let's get it rocking and rolling, and I'm going to count as we go. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. Back to A. Here's our A. Here's the B. Okay, so how do I know that it's an A and a B? Well, let's actually break this one down, and then we're going to jump into the next lesson. So we have here an A. Now we have the same exact rhythm, different notes. That's going to be our A prime. Then we repeat the A. And then we go to the B. That's our B. Now we go to the next section. So we start with a new A subphrase. So these are all subphrases, right? So this is form A, this is form B. We have subphrase AA prime AB. Now for the next one. I'm going to call that. It's like an A, B, then A again. To C. So we have subphrase AAAB to subphrase ABAC that make up this AB form. And what's cool, check this out, we have two measures, two measures, two measures, two measures for each one of these, and only one measure, one measure, one measure, and one measure for each one of the subphrases in the B. In fact, we could think of the B also as being like an A to an A prime is another way of thinking about it. So we think about the A plus B together, like what happens if we think A plus B. We think about the subphrases being motifs as opposed to subphrases, then we just have subphrase A to subphrase A prime because they both start with the A and then they just end a little bit differently. So there you go. That's how we can start to put all the pieces together and understand melody from the ground all the way up through form here for video game music. Before you go to the next lesson, I have a quick assignment for you. Your assignment is to compose an uneven A-B form piece of music and share it with me for a review, and then go ahead and carry on. You don't have to wait for me to get back to you for the review. Just create it, share it, and then go on to the next lesson. So go ahead and share. I'll see you in the community, and then I'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to talk all about an intro. Intro is short for introduction. Just like when you meet someone, you say, "Hi, my name's Bob," or "Hi, my name's Jill," or "Hi, my name's Susie," or whatever. I usually say, "Hi, my name's Dan." That is an introduction. In the same way, some pieces of music like to introduce themselves and shake your hand before getting down to the A sections and the B sections and all the form that you're about to hear. Now, there's two different ways intros are heard in video game music. The first way is you will hear an intro only at the start and then you never hear it again for the entire piece of music. It loops around and around and around it goes. We never hear the intro again. The other way we hear an intro is we hear an intro and then it's actually part of the loop. We could call it an A section, but it doesn't quite feel like an A section. It feels like it sets up the A section to happen. But especially in older games where they didn't have the capabilities in the sound engines to say, just have an intro one time and then everything else loops, you're going to hear that the intros are included in the loop. So we're going to listen to two different tracks from two different Zelda games, and we're going to hear one that has an intro that only happens at the beginning, and then one that's a little older that has an intro that happens every single time the loop comes around. All right, let's jump in and listen to this one, which is Gerudo Valley from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Here's the intro. That was the intro. Let's listen to it one more time. Remember it. Now we're going to listen to a fair bit of this. You're going to see it's not going to come back. So what we're going to listen for is for that. We're going to listen for that for when that comes back. That's going to be our clue we've gotten back to an A. We still haven't got back to A. Still not back to A. Ah, that's the A. But we didn't hear the intro that time, just went straight to the A. And now we can hear it's repeating the form. Right. So we had intro, then we had A, B, C, D, E, F. There was quite a few sections in there. And then it goes straight back to the A, no intro again. Now, let's listen to a piece where the intro plays every single time. Here's the intro. This is going to be Kakariko Village from A Link to the Past. That's the intro, right there. It's one time through the chord progression, 4 measures. That's the intro. Here's what I'm going to call the A section. That was AA with subphrases. That's B. C, that's our sAA'BC form. And here's the A section repeating again, it's going to be at the subphrase level, sAA'BC. Here's the A subphrase again. Here's B. Here's our C, which sure enough does have a motif. This is that sentence structure. It's when the A, B, C follows those classical rules. Here's our B section. That's like an ABAC structure in the B section. Here's the intro. And now we're back to the A. So is that really an intro, or is that in fact the A section? And then the next thing that happens is the B section, and really it's an ABC form, and the A section's only 4 measures long, and then the B section, which we just called the A section, is actually the B, and it's 8 measures long, and the B section's 8 measures long, but it's actually the C. Doesn't really matter. I like to delineate the two systems. We're actually conflating. We're bringing two systems together. We're bringing song form with ideas like intro, outro, verse, chorus. We're bringing that into the A-B framework. And I find it very useful because then we can look at where the main melodic structure and the main meat of the piece is and call that the A's, the B's, and the C's. And then the little bits that get us in there, important, just because I say little doesn't mean they're not important, just they're shorter usually. Those shorter bits, intros can be 8 measures, intros can be super long to get us to the melodic stuff. It doesn't really matter. The point is that the intros don't serve the same function as like an A section that has a melody in it that's structured in this way. So cool, we got to listen through this, and actually I had to point out to you that we had the sentence structure in the A section, and then the period structure in the B section, also known, like we refer to them as the sAA'BC, and then the sABAC frameworks. So that's intros. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to take a couple of your favorite compositions that you worked on in the previous parts of this course so far and add an intro element to them. You can add the intro as a repeating element, or you can add the intro that it just happens one time at the very beginning. I would invite you to do at least 5 intros and share them with me for review in the group before moving on to the next lesson. So go ahead, crank out some music, and I'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, again, I'm going to invite you to use your ears to hear the form. We're going to listen to a piece of music that has an intro that does not repeat, and then it goes into an uneven A-B structure. Let's check out Sonic the Hedgehog OST Green Hill Zone. Here we go, starting off with the intro. All of this is intro. There's like over 8 measures of intro. Here's the A section. A prime. Again, A. Same rhythm, A prime. A prime. A prime. Now here's the B section. A prime. To kind of a B. And we're back to the A section with an A subphrase. A subphrase again. A again. Again, A prime. So we can see here that the structure we're hearing at the subphrase level is A. So cool. Now here's the B section. We have an intro that does not repeat, which we're going to call I. Then we have an A section that is 16 measures long. Then we have a B section that's 8 measures long. Within the A section, we heard an A prime to A, then to A double prime. Then in the B, this is new material now, we've got an A prime, A double prime to B. Remember that sAA'B, always good for turning us back around to get us home. In the A section, each A subphrase, these are form, these are subphrase. Each subphrase is 4 measures long. Here, each subphrase we're thinking about as being 2 measures long. And there you go. That's Sonic Green Hill Zone. Let's listen to another one here. All of this is intro. This is intro. Is like super extended intro. So you could call the things that are happening here in melody, I'm thinking this more to being like ostinato figures, right? Because they're gone now. We're going multiple times through the chord progression before we get to any melodic material. This really is ambiance. You know, little things. Little things. This is like building up to saying something. Now we could think of that as being melodic content. I'm not going to though. There's our A. Now we've already broken this one down with the subphrases. Second time through the A. Here we go to our B. Here's our B. D, B, D, D, D. 3, 4, 3. And now we're back to this stretch of stuff. It's not exactly like what we heard in the intro with like all those whale sounds. And like that's actually different, right? So we got this big extended space here. So the music you create doesn't have to be all melody all the time. You can have these big stretches where there isn't a significant melodic event happening and it's just vibes and feelings and just pads and chord progression, and you're sort of building the emotional just baseline level of what's going on. Excellent. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to now, before you go to the next lesson, create 3, count them 3 sketches of a melody where you use an intro and you create either an even or an uneven A, B structured piece of music. Go ahead, create those, share them with me in the group. Don't get disheartened. This amount of making music is actually one of the best things you can do. Don't just learn these frameworks and then say, oh, I got it, and then wonder why like you're feeling stuck. It's like, no, each framework you learn, use it like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times until you really get it, and then move on to the next one. And that way you're really going to grow a lot faster than you would otherwise. All right, so go ahead, create. Don't just watch lessons, create. And then I'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the A, B, A form. We're not going to have any examples to listen to, and I'll explain why. This is going to be a short lesson. ABA in classical music is called ternary form. T like 3, ternary, like a tricycle has 3 wheels, or the Triforce has 3 triangles. If we're keeping it very video gamey, that's a Legend of Zelda. So ABA, I have a hypothesis why I actually didn't come across any ABA music in the video games I was looking at. I came across uneven AB forms, right? So that's 2 instances of A to 1 instance of B. And it happens in this order, AAB. It doesn't happen ABA. The reason why I think this is, if you think about something that's looping, it doesn't really make sense to create an ABA, because at the loop, what's going to happen? You're going to have 2 A's in a row before you hit the next ABA, and then you're going to have 2 A's in a row before you hit the next ABA, right? Now, you may be able to find some examples of ternary in video game music. I didn't spend 500 years looking through every single piece of music that's ever been published for video games. I took some time, I did some research, also thought through all the OSTs I've ever listened to, which is a couple now at this point. Couldn't think of any. And I think this is the reason why. It comes down to the way when things loop, the looping is awkward. Like, for example, A Link to the Past had like intro, AAB, and that intro breaks things up even more. So there's almost like 2 things that happen. When this loops, we go intro, A, B. Now, intro, A, B. There's a lot of stuff that happens in between this A and then the next A, which spaces things out. And that's like, you don't want too much repetition. You want repetition, but not too much repetition. And when you have repetition, sometimes it's nice to space it out. And so that creates a little bit of breathing room for repetition. So there you go. That's all I have for you on this lesson. I'm not going to invite you to go create an ABA form. I just wanted to show you what it is. You understand what it is. You may see it out and about. You may see it in the wild. And I'll see you in the next lesson. A fairly common form that we can hear in video game music is the ABC form. Let's listen to a famous ABC form piece of music. Here's the ABC. It's going to start us off with a little intro here. A. There you go. Here's the B. Here's the C. A. A little bit of a change. There's more stuff happening here, but melodically it's the same as the A. B. Here's the C. Here's another ABC form for you. Here's the A. That's me, A subphrase, A prime, A, kind of B, Here's our B for in the form. Here's our B. ABAC. Subphrase. B. A. Prime. C. And here's our C section. A prime, A double prime, B. In terms of the subphrases. All right, let's listen to another one. Here's Chrono Trigger Frog's theme. Here's the A. A. As AAAB, basically. This is the B section here. And this is the C section. A. So that's A prime of the subphrase. A double prime. Here's our B section. That's A. B. A prime. C. Here's our C section. A prime. A double prime. Right, so you can now start to see how we can track the sections and we can track approximately the subphrases that are happening within those sections. So that's the ABC form. Go ahead and create 5 ABC sketches using either a notation editor or a DAW. Share them with me for feedback in the group. I will see you in the next lesson. Now, video game music isn't just A's, B's, and C's. It's not just melodies. There's times where you need something else. And one of these something else's is ostinato. And to say ostinato form isn't really a thing, but it kind of is. What else would you describe a piece of music where you just have one idea that repeats over and over again, and it's not really an A section? For example, if we listen to Hurry Along from Pokemon Black and White, let's listen to this. So to be clear, there was an intro there. That's the intro. That's the intro. Now here we are. It's this the whole time. So are you calling that a melody? Yeah. Okay, we're calling it a melody, but just an A over and over again. So it is ostinato. Ostinato means something that repeats so much it could be described as stubborn. It's stubbornly repeating. This repeats so much, it's like, no, here's the thing, here it is over and over again. This is ostinato form. How many times does it loop? However many times you want it to loop. No right answer there. This is ostinato. Let's listen to one more example of ostinato. I don't know if you can tell, I was listening to the Pokemon Black and White soundtrack and just found so many incredible examples to bring to you. This is no way, shape, or form an endorsement of Pokemon music as superior or anything like that. I just happened to find so many salient and relevant examples to show you here. Okay, so here we have Victory, Wild Pokemon. I mean, we're gonna have an intro, and then it's just gonna be ostinato. So here's the intro. That's the intro. Now, let's hear what happens. And we're back. And we're back. And around it goes. This is Ostinato Form. Now, both of these are kind of playful versions of Ostinato. Both of them were in major keys. Ostinato doesn't have to be major. It also could be a minor key. For this, you might want to use a DAW because maybe you're going to make something that's a little bit more atmospheric, or maybe like this, it doesn't really have a melody to it. But however you want to use it, whether you're going to use a notation editor or you're going to use a digital audio workstation, right? So notation editor is going to be like Noteflight or Sibelius, or using a DAW like BandLab or Logic or Reaper or FL Studio. Create 5 sketches of ostinato patterns before you go to the next lesson and share them with me, and create 5 different things. Again, don't just stick to major, go to minor, go anywhere you want to go, just go somewhere. Create those, share them with me, and then go do the next lesson. Because remember, we learn a lot by doing. So go ahead, go create at least 5 ostinato pieces, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Well, you did it. You made it through motifs, you made it through subphrases, and you've made it through song form. If you followed the instructions, you've now also created something close to or over 100 sketches and ideas that, if you compare the first to the 100th, I believe you will notice a distinct difference in the level of quality, thought, and overall cohesion and choices that you can make as a composer now after your 100th composition than you could before your first. The next step is to go on to the next module in this course, where I'm going to show you how to start to think more globally about arrangements, about production, and about bringing together all the skills you've learned so far through all of the courses you've done with me: music theory, instrumental inspiration, and now gamer grooves. Everything's going to come together, and we're going to start really taking this whole thing to the next level. So I'm really excited to see you there. We're going to start creating some seriously awesome game music. You're going to take your skills to the next level. It's going to be fantastic. I will see you in the next module. See you there. I think you're going to like this playlist over here, because I made this playlist just for you, because you want to get better at creating your own music. Everything in there is just geared towards, well, creating your own music. Examples of me walking you through how to create music, examples of me creating music and talking you through how I'm thinking, even more lessons, deep dives, insights into creating video game music.